a K-12 girls' school in southern Tasmania. And to give some context to the project that we're focusing on today, for the last, say, about 4 years, we've tried to bring a STEM mentality to the school in a bigger way than there has been in the past. About 4 years ago, myself and a colleague got some support from our principal to actually have a little bit of time released to go and work with other classes or to try and generate some sort of program. And we started off working with Year 6 girls. And it's been interesting being here for the last day, and so because all the little experiments that I've heard of, the different approaches that I've seen are the kinds of things that we wrestled with as well. And we'll try this and we'd realise this particular style isn't working, so we'd modify it and try something else. What we wound up moving towards, I won't say drifting, but moving towards was a situation where we would try and go into a class, develop some models, some tasks, some styles of working, some mini projects, if you will, that would work with a group of kids, but would make sure that the teachers were in there as well working with us. We made a class in Year 9 which was purely a STEM class, and that, I guess, straight away it changed the clientele, because now it wasn't, maths advanced or anything like maths, so different kids were selecting the class from the outset.
We gave them a brief, and we tried to give them a realistic brief, something that they could really get their hands around. And so we want to develop an app for the iPhone, and we chose the iPhone because we're a girls' school. We wanted to engage them in something that they used all of the time, that they were heavily invested in, and they had a deep personal connection with their phones. So we said, we want you guys to develop an app for new students to our school. You need to sit down, that's your brief, you need to sit down as a class, come up with what functions you want this app to provide, which is going to help out new students. And basically they went, well, what was difficult about coming to the senior school as Year 9s? And they said, we get this crazy timetable, you probably can't read it, but basically it's pretty useless. You get your subject, which is a really hard thing to get your head around, so 9 graphic SS2 whatever. You get this weird acronym BF, which is your teacher, and no one has a clue who BF is. And you get A4, which is the room, and no one knows how to find the rooms in the school. So they sat down, we basically brainstormed a whole lot of struggles they had as students, and how could we link those parts of the app in with helping new students to settle into the school. Melita Griffith, who is a marketing manager, and she sat down with them and talked about working with a client. How do you work with a client when you're coding, when you're developing a program? How do you communicate well enough so the client is clear on what they want from their expectations and you're clear with what you can actually provide? Okay, this is a school app, so it's got to fit the school brand. How do you actually bring continuity in? She talked through all of those kind of design phases, and how do you build that through with a client, making sure that you're satisfying what they need. So we set the school up as a client, and then we started the brainstorming. This is where we really wanted to get into engineering, because we saw that as a large weakness for our Year 9s. They have very little technology and they have very little engineering. So we wanted them to go through a brainstorm idea, moving through to designing it. So we got them to storyboard their graphical user interfaces, implementing and programming, and this took a large amount of time. And this was a new thing for a lot of the girls as well. They're very much, if I can't do it instantly, I stop. So trying to teach them ways to problem solve themselves wasn't intentional, but it was a really useful thing to come out of this, to go, okay, well, how can you find a solution? And the way we split it up was there were 5 main functions of the app, and we split the class into 5 groups. So they were working in groups of about 3 or 4 to develop their section of app, and then they tied it all together at the end. The 5 features they came up with were a timetable section, because you get this bit of paper, you put it in your diary, you lose a bit of paper, you lose your diary. But they never lose their phone, oddly enough. So see if we can store it on the phone, that would be good. Teacher search, you get that stupid code. CI, who's CI? Mr. Carmichael. How did you not know that? So they wanted a code search where they could type that in, find out who their teacher was, their email, and what they taught. To-do list, homework stuff, useful links, which went to the school intranet and all that kind of stuff, and an interactive map. The interactive map was where we spent most of our time bringing in the maths. The technology was all new, coding for the iPhone. We used the Apple language Swift on Xcode. And we use that because it has a really good graphical user interface and it has storyboarding built into it. So they could develop their storyboards and they could draw them up on that quickly. We had issues along the way with that, but it did have some real bonuses to it. Engineering was really evident in there with that design, test, redesign phase that they went through. And the maths, we looked obviously at the Cartesian plane and the trigonometry explicitly. But at the end, when they actually got their app done and it all came together, they felt really positive about what they'd achieved. And they were really amazed at what they'd actually been able to do as a class.